Leda had always believed that she understood her life. At 29, she worked in a bustling law firm in the heart of the city, balancing ambition with the complexities of modern urban living. She had style, independence, and a sense of control over her schedule, her finances, and even her emotions. Yet when it came to her marriage, she assumed that love and trust could exist without constant vigilance. Then there was David, 32 years old, a man with a career that demanded presence and poise, a polished exterior that inspired confidence. On the surface, they were the picture of a successful urban couple, shared dinners, weekend brunches, and a life documented in carefully curated social media snapshots. But beneath the surface, in the quiet rhythm of the city, the cracks were forming. It started with small signs, a notification sound that didn't match his usual phone, a text message vanishing too quickly to read. Leda brushed them off at first. She told herself that city life was stressful, that David's career often demanded secrecy and discretion. But when she arrived home one evening and noticed two phones on the kitchen counter, her world shifted. One was his usual smartphone. The other, sleek and nearly invisible, vibrated softly with messages she wasn't meant to see. Her first instinct was disbelief. Surely she was imagining things. She had heard stories, often casually dismissed as gossip, about men leading double lives in the city, but she had never thought it could happen to her. Yet the proof was undeniable. Meanwhile, there was Zara, 27, a colleague from his firm, a sharp, ambitious woman navigating her own pressures in the urban professional sphere. She existed in subtle, discreet spaces, urban rooftop cafes, quiet lounges, evenings in dimly lit restaurants where the city lights blurred into anonymity. It wasn't until one evening when Lara came home from work and saw both phones on the kitchen counter that things began to change. One was David's usual phone. The other, a sleek, almost invisible device, was quietly buzzing. Her mind raced. She questioned herself. Was this a mistake? Surely she was imagining things, right? But there was no mistaking the truth. Lara's fingers lingered over the phones, a moment of hesitation before she gathered her thoughts. Over the next few days, Lara became more observant. She began to notice strange patterns, lunches he claimed were meetings, dinners with clients she never met. They were subtle, but the signs were there. Lara knew something was off. Meanwhile, David continued with his daily routine, unaware of Lara's growing suspicion. He had a way of moving through life, a balance between appearances and reality. But David's second phone was more than just a tool for work. It was the gateway to a double life that Lara had yet to uncover. And then there was Zara, the woman on the other end of that phone. She was young, ambitious, and knew how to move through the city's professional circles. Their meetings were discreet, always in hidden places, dimly lit restaurants, rooftop cafes. It wasn't about passion. It was about survival in a world where power and opportunity could be grabbed quickly. David had mastered this art of invisibility, and it was only a matter of time before Lara started to unravel it. Lara wasn't just suspicious. She had begun to understand the invisible forces shaping their lives. Money, status, ambition. These were pressures that had quietly influenced their marriage. Late-night coffee sessions with her best friend, Maya, gave Lara the space to think. Maya, who worked in media, had seen it all. Urban survival, the compromises women made, and the pressures men carried. You have to watch Lara. Don't confront him right away. Observe. Take note. City life is all about subtlety, not drama, Maya would say, her tone a mixture of caution and experience. Lara took Maya's advice to heart. Instead of confronting David head-on, she started observing his behavior more carefully. The texts, the calls, everything seemed to fit into a growing pattern. It was clear the city itself was complicit in these hidden lives. The anonymity of high-rise buildings, the flow of taxis, and the blurred lines between work and home made it easy to keep secrets. Lara continued to document everything: dates, times, messages, each detail a new clue leading her closer to the truth. As the days went on, Lara noticed that the cracks in their marriage were deepening. She started to realize that the pressure of city life wasn't just about work or money. It was about compromise and survival in a world where love alone couldn't always hold things together. David's life too was shaped by these same pressures. He never intended for things to get this far. But once you've begun living a lie, the hardest part is knowing when to stop. His secret life with Zara was not about passion. It was a momentary escape, a way to navigate a world of overwhelming expectations. He had built this life slowly, meticulously, thinking it would never affect his marriage. But the city had a way of turning everything upside down. The turning point came one Friday evening. David returned later than usual. Lara had already decided. The phones were laid out on the kitchen counter. It was time to confront him.
David, surprised by Lara's calm demeanor, hesitated. His usually composed exterior began to crack. The phones were silent witnesses to the truth that had been hidden in plain sight. "Why 2 phones, David?" Lara's voice remained steady, but her heart pounded. There was no yelling, no accusations, just a quiet unraveling of years of secrecy. "It's not what you think," David finally said, his voice tense. Lara sat quietly, listening, her mind racing. This was no longer just about betrayal. It was about understanding the invisible pressures that had led them both to this point. The conversation, raw and unembellished, went on. There were no theatrics, no shouting, just a negotiation of trust, a weighing of consequences, and the recognition that their marriage had been shaped by forces they hadn't even realized. David admitted to his mistakes, but there was something else in his voice. It was not just remorse. It was a recognition of the pressure to keep up appearances in a world that demanded perfection. And then there was Zara. She didn't seek to disrupt Lara's life, but her existence had become a symbol of the compromises David had made. The conversation went on, an exchange of honesty, of uncovering the deep cracks in the foundation of their relationship. Lara wasn't angry. She was learning to see the city for what it really was, a place where ambition, survival, and love could never truly be separated. At the end of the conversation, there was no dramatic collapse. There was no final moment of clarity. Instead, there was a tentative reshaping of their relationship. The city didn't change, but their understanding of it did. The weeks that followed were filled with quiet adjustments. Lara and David started to reconstruct their routines, communicating more openly. The city outside their apartment remained the same, bustling, indifferent. But inside their home, a shift had begun. "We need to be more honest with each other," Lara said one evening, her voice softer now, the tension of the earlier confrontation replaced by a desire to rebuild. David nodded. The weight of the earlier conversation still hung between them. There was no pretending anymore. His second phone was no longer hidden, and neither were the things they had kept from each other. They spoke about the pressures of city life, the long hours, the demanding careers, the constant expectations of success. It wasn't just about trust. It was about survival in a world where the lines between personal and professional were often blurred. Lara could feel the shift in David. It was subtle but unmistakable. He was no longer the man she had once trusted blindly. This new version of him was more vulnerable, more aware of the choices he had made. The days passed, and David's commitment to change was tested again and again. Late-night emails, sudden meetings, and unexpected phone calls still marked his daily life, but now he shared the details with Lara. One evening, while sitting at their kitchen table, Lara asked David a question that had been on her mind for weeks. What was Zara to you? David paused, the weight of the question sinking in. For the first time, his answer was clear, and it was without pretense. She was a distraction, David admitted. His voice was steady but filled with regret. For a moment, Lara felt the familiar pang of betrayal, but she also recognized the truth in his words. In the city, distractions came in many forms, and sometimes they filled the spaces that ambition, loneliness, and stress created. Still, the question remained, could their relationship survive the weight of these compromises? Could they rebuild, or was this just another chapter in a long history of urban survival? Lara found herself wondering if the city itself was the cause of all their problems. Was it the constant pressure to perform, to be successful, to present an image of perfection? She thought back to their early days together when they were both fresh in the city, ambitious but untainted by its harsher realities. Could they return to that, or had the city already shaped them too much? The truth, Lara realized, was far more complex than simple betrayal. The city had shaped them both, and their relationship had become a reflection of its complexities: ambition, survival, compromise, and the constant push for more. David, too, was wrestling with the realization that their marriage couldn't continue the way it had. Something had to change. He couldn't keep living in two worlds, balancing lies with love. The couple spent the following weeks in deep conversation, sharing their fears and hopes for the future. Each conversation was an attempt to create a new framework for their relationship, one based on honesty and understanding, not on expectations or appearances. But Zara's presence lingered, a reminder of the compromises David had made. Zara had never been the villain, but she had been the spark that ignited their unraveling. Lara found herself wondering how many other couples in the city were navigating similar battles. How many lives were built on compromises too small to notice until it was too late. She didn't have an answer, but she did know this. In the city, there were no easy answers. There was only survival and the choices people made to navigate its hidden pressures. In the end, Lara and David decided to give their relationship another chance, not because they were naive, but because they were willing to work through the complexities of city life together, honestly, deliberately, and with an understanding that love in the modern world takes constant effort. The city continued to pulse outside their apartment, busy, chaotic, and indifferent to their struggles. But inside, there was a quiet change. The tension had not disappeared, but it had shifted to something more manageable. They started to live more intentionally, carving out moments to connect amidst the demands of their careers and the pressures of urban life. Even as they began to heal, Lara couldn't shake the feeling that they were only surviving the city's demands, not thriving in it. Was it possible to truly thrive when so much of life was about compromise? Her thoughts were interrupted one afternoon when she found herself walking through the city's crowded streets. The city, always bustling, always moving, seemed to echo her internal conflict. Lara paused in the middle of a busy intersection, watching the flow of people around her. She realized that no one really knew the stories hidden behind the polished facades. How many others like her were navigating the complexities of city life in silence? It wasn't just about trust. It was about how people chose to live with the compromises they made. In a city that demanded everything, was there even room for pure, unblemished love? Lara had learned that love in the city was an active choice. It wasn't just about feelings. It was about choosing to commit, to communicate, and to face the uncomfortable truths that arose when the lights dimmed and the real world set in. David, too, had learned the same lesson. He understood that in the city, nothing was ever truly private. The city was a mirror,
reflecting the desires, fears, and compromises of everyone who lived in it. They both knew that their relationship would never be the same, but they also knew that it could be something better, something real, and that, perhaps, was the truest form of survival in the modern city. The city did not care. It would continue to pulse with its rhythms, indifferent to the lives of those who moved through it. But for Lara and David, the choice was clear. They would navigate the urban labyrinth together, with honesty, commitment, and the courage to confront the complexities of their love. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. Lara and David rebuilt, bit by bit, learning how to trust again. The city around them never stopped moving, but they were learning how to navigate it with awareness and intention. They found new routines, shared moments of laughter, and faced the challenges of city life together. They knew that the past wouldn't disappear, but they were learning to live with it. Even as they built something new, Lara couldn't help but think about Zara. Not with anger, but with curiosity. What had driven her into David's life? What choices had she made in her own search for success and belonging? In a way, Zara had been part of their story, not as a villain, but as a reminder of the pressures the city placed on everyone who lived in it. Desire, ambition, and survival. These were the forces that shaped people, that shaped choices. The city, Lara realized, was both a place of opportunity and a place of danger. It demanded everything of its inhabitants, and sometimes it took more than they were willing to give. But it also offered the chance for redemption, for second chances, and that was what Lara and David were working toward. A new chance built on trust, awareness, and the willingness to face uncomfortable truths. In the end, their relationship wasn't defined by the mistakes they had made, but by their willingness to rebuild, to evolve with the city, and to learn from the complexities it presented. The city, with all its complexities and contradictions, had become their home again. Not a place to escape, but a place to understand, to adapt, and to grow. And so their story continued. Not with a dramatic ending, but with the quiet, determined hope that they would face